Right, okay. So welcome everybody to this EBCU Continental Beer webinar on Denmark. And I'm going to hand over now to Kasper. And Kasper and Niels are your two presenters for tonight. So Kasper, welcome to EBCU. Thank you for presenting this workshop. And I'm going to hand over to you. No, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And wow, what a program, Frank Boone. That's a big capacity. Hello, everyone. Before we just introduce ourselves, me and Niels, I'd like to begin with the most important Danish word, skål. Cheers. Uh, Thank you for coming in. And allow me to share my screen as well. And let's go to the top. The program for tonight. Yeah. We will take you on a journey through Denmark's beer culture and the past and the present. Today we focus on Copenhagen, and even though we showcase Copenhagen, you can rest assured that you will find great beer in all corners of Denmark should you visit. My name is Kasper Mundt-Nielsen. I'm the editor of the Danske Ølentusiasters members magazine called Ølentusiasten, the beer enthusiast. I have almost 20 years of experience from the publishing industry. The last 10 years, I've been writing professionally about food and beverages for both consumers and the industry. On top of the magazine, I host a podcast and a newsletter about beer. And recently, I was able to add author to the list of merits with a book about beer travels in Prague. With me today, I have the chairman of Danske Ølentusiaster and the ABCU delegate, Niels Torm. Niels, will you please introduce yourself?
Yes, and then I need to unmute, of course. Thank you very much, Kasper, and thank you, and hi to all of you. As Kasper said, Niels Torm, I'm national chairman of Danske Ølentusiaster, or Danske, as we are known in EBCU circles. I've been a member of the beer enthusiast. I've actually been a beer enthusiast since I had a project in Belgium, in Brussels, back in around the millennium. I learned there what good beer, really good beer, actually is, and since then I've used a lot of my spare time to get to know a lot about beer. All that I can, I've started brewing myself, and for the last 1.5 year, I've used a lot of my spare time outside my paid work as national chairman of Danske. My paid work is with AI. I'm working with AI, and I'm a privacy nerd also. So this is a really good way to keep touch with the real world instead of the theoretical world I most likely or most of my time work in. So that's me. Kasper, will you take it from here?
All right, then I'll set the scene before I pass the word back to you, Niels. Everyone knows the stories about the raging Vikings, whom the drunken stupors looted and pillaged all across Europe. Today, Vikings are most often described as some sort of love affair with beer, meat, parties, and murders, obviously. It was only a couple of years ago, actually, there was found evidence that we in the late Stone Age in Denmark, almost 5,000 years ago, that's 4,000 years before the Vikings, brewed beverages with malted cereals. Another important found was the Egtved girl, who is dated to have died in the summer of 1370 before Christ. She was buried with a bucket of beer. This beer in the bucket was brewed with wheat malt, lingonberries or cranberries, that's not quite sure, some pollen and America Gale. It was estimated that this beer was around 1.5% alcohol. Tourists today can see the remains of the Egtved girl in the Danish National Museum in Copenhagen. And the brewery Skans, as you see on the picture here, have brewed a version of this Egtved girl's beer in collaboration with the museum. It's somewhat stronger, it's 5.5%, but the same adjuncts as the old beer, more or less. But we have to fast forward to the 19th century before Danish beer is really recognized more than just locally. Before then, the Danish stock beer was malty, bready, and very sweet. The closest modern beer to this historical beer that we still brew today is called the Hvidtøl. It's brown, it's muddy, it has notes of caramel and perhaps some licorice, and a low ABV, most often below 2.25%. I did a quick count before this show, and there's less than 10 of this beer type on the Danish market, and no microbreweries, no craft breweries have it in their portfolio. More interestingly is that the Hvidtøl have been a focus in both German and Polish homebrewing competitions, but I cannot recall any attention to the beer here on the home market. And I know there's some Danes that is listening with. Feel free to chime in if I'm wrong. But we have to move to 1847, when this visionary industrialist E.C. Jacobsen founded Carlsberg in Copenhagen. It was here at Carlsberg's laboratory that brewing was revolutionized by Emil Christian Hansen, who cultivated a pure strain of lager yeast in 1883. This breakthrough enabled consistent, high-quality lager production, and lager beer caught on rapidly. By late 1800s, Carlsberg and his rival, Tuborg, established in 1873, were national icons. Eventually, Carlsberg acquired Tuborg in 1970, and creating a near monopoly on the Danish beer market. For much of the 20th century, Danes mostly drank golden pilsners from a handful of big and small breweries. Variety dwindled, and many small breweries disappeared. However, Danish beer culture was not content to remain a one-note symphony of pilsner. The 1990s saw beer consumption decline as wine gained popularity, and it's the same all across Europe or the world even. And something had to change, and luckily it did. In 1998, a group of passionate beer lovers founded an organization that would spark a beer revolution, that is Danske Ølentusiaster. At that time of conceiving, there were only 13 breweries left in Denmark. Today there are well over 200 breweries and counting across the country. In 2022, there were 261 active breweries, and most of them innovative microbreweries, and that translates to around one brewery per 22,000 citizens. This explosive growth of craft brewing, we call it Denmark's beer revolution. It reintroduced the diversity and the creativity into Danish pints. A wave of brewpubs and small producers emerged, and in the early 2000s, they experimented with ales, stouts, IPAs, later sours, and more. Even traditional dark lagers like porter in Denmark, we wanna make porter as a lager. They made a comeback alongside some very bold new recipes. And today, Denmark's beer landscape is a dynamic blend of old and new. And sure, the crisp pale lager still rules in volume. Somewhat estimates that around 92% of all beers sold are from the giants like Carlsberg and Royal Unibrew, and they are household names, but craft beers has captured the Danish hearts and taste buds. If you visit a very traditional pub, you'll most likely find products from Carlsberg or Royal Unibrew. It's the duopoly that has a firm grip on the Danish market. But even the oldest pubs now have IPA either on tap or on bottle, so that style has certainly become mainstream after the lager. And if you visit the more modern pubs or bottle shops, you'll find everything from craft lagers to hoppy New England IPAs, or barrel-aged imperial stouts or funky sours. And this is the evolution we're trying to walk you through in quick 30 minutes we have more or less now. It's a special focus on Copenhagen because that is the easiest part to get around. But as I started with saying, there's great beers in all parts of Denmark, so you should really try and visit and make a great trip out of it. Along the way, we'll highlight some key milestones, some influential breweries, must-visit watering holes, some festivals, and some insider tips. Perhaps there's also some Danish hygge in between. And back to you, Niels. You need to put on them.
I need
scene.
to unmute, as Kasper rightly mentioned. Yes. No, as he mentioned, every revolution needs its cheerleaders. And in Denmark, our beer renaissance, it was actually Danske Ølentusiaster. Literally, for those who do not know Danish beer enthusiasts. I'll call it Danske from here on, which is the name we're known as around Europe where we come around. So, as Kasper mentioned, it was founded on September 5th in 1998. It was a handful of beer lovers and homebrewers who, in a pub in Odense, basically in the middle of Denmark, sat down and started this revolution with the Danske. They joined forces and to basically champion better beer. And our timing was perfect, as we heard Kasper said. Only 13 breweries remained then, so these enthusiasts set out to revive Denmark's beer diversity. Even Carlsberg's leadership recognized the need. A Carlsberg brand manager later noted that the founding of Danish beer enthusiasts basically started the beer revolution in Denmark. And as you can imagine, we're quite proud of a statement like that. And in the 25 plus years since, Danske has grown into Denmark's largest beer consumer union organization. Actually, we are the second largest consumer organization in Denmark. Quite interesting, with around 7,000 members. It's actually the second largest beer consumer group in Europe. We're only trailed by Camera, or we're only overgrown by Camera in the UK. Our mission, in short, to celebrate and improve beer culture. Danske represents Danish beer consumers in the National Consumer Council, fighting for quality, diversity, and availability of good beer for Danes. We work politically, both in Denmark and through EBCU, to ensure fair conditions for beer consumers, brewers, importers, pubs, you name it. This means lobbying for sensible beer taxes, deposit regulations, and consumer rights, as well as promoting beer education and appreciation. We publish a bi-monthly magazine, and that's Kasper's daily work, and run a busy calendar of events that connect the beer community across the nation. One of our greatest contributions to the Danish beer scene is organizing the annual beer festival in Copenhagen, Ølfestival, every May. It started in 2001 as the first beer festival in Denmark. It quickly became a showcase for every Danish brewery, big and small, to pour their brews for the public. It has grown into a massive celebration, attracting brewers and beer fans from around the world. At the festival, you can taste hundreds, up towards 1,000 different beers from 70 plus breweries in one place. Danske members often volunteer en masse to the festival with friendly efficiency, and members get perks like discounted tickets beyond the big festival. Beyond the big festival, Danske local chapters organize regular tastings, brewery visits, and every year on the first Saturday of September, which was funny enough, actually the date or the day that Danske was established. 5th of September was the first Saturday in September, and now the first Saturday of September is called the Day of Beer in Denmark. So we just had it. I visited a couple of them around Denmark, and we gathered thousands of people all around the country for different celebrations where we show the Danes what real beer is. The local breweries, the home brewers, local home brewers, all have a chance to present their beer to the wider audience. And for us, it's a holiday, like one of the most important holidays in the year. For a beer enthusiast, Day of the Beer is really important. And as I said, bars, breweries, shops across the country, from Copenhagen to the smaller towns, host these events. We have a lot of breweries hosting events together with us or even without Danske, but they picked up the day. So this is not just a membership event. It's an event, nationwide event for everyone who loves good beer. So in short, Danske have transformed Denmark from a monopoly beer market to a thriving mosaic of breweries. Our slogan, Godt øl til danskerne, or good beer for the Danes, is capturing our spirit well. We are giving consumers a voice, and brewers have gained an audience eager to try new styles. Kasper?
Thank you. As Niels said, we could not be here without all the small local chapters. We have 49 local chapters around the nation, hosting events, talking about beer, meeting, most of them monthly. It's a great way to experience beer, being a part of our local chapters. Yes, now let's take a look at some of the breweries that put Denmark on the international beer map. No conversation about Danish craft beer is complete without Mikkeller. Founded in 2005 in Copenhagen by the former school teacher Mikkel Borg Bjergsø and his friend Christian Keller, they started as a self-described gypsy brewery, meaning they had no permanent brewery at first, instead brewing experimental recipes at other facilities. Mikkeller gained global fame for pushing boundaries. One of the first ones were Beer Geek Breakfast. It took the world by storm and was rated amongst the world's best beers back when they only brewed in their own kitchen. And remarkably, what began as two friends homebrewing in a kitchen became an international phenomenon in under a decade. Today, Mikkeller exports beers to over 50 countries and operates an equal number of 20 beer bars and eateries around the globe. They have proven that Danish microbrewery, just as Kasper can influence beer trends worldwide. Mikkeller also exemplifies the playful side of beer, so with creative labels and concepts. They even run a beer-themed running club, and they have their own beer festival in Copenhagen called the Mikkeller Beer Celebration. After 2 years of consolidation in a tough market, they had a very big focus on the core range. They are now back pursuing innovation, and they have several locations in Copenhagen, each offering a different experience. Next up is from the island of Amager, that is a great part of Copenhagen. Amager Bryghus has been a stalwart of Danish craft since 2007. They were early pioneers of Denmark's hobby beer revolution, drawing inspiration from especially the American craft brewers. They are famed for their in-your-face IPAs, robust imperial stouts, colorful names and artwork. They love collaboration brews with other top breweries worldwide, many of them from America, and the beers consistently rank high in beer competitions. I read somewhere that they are called pioneers in the Danish beer revolution, still going strong, just as strong as their beers, and I like that. They are known for the extreme beers that push the limits of flavor. So if you crave hops, Amager's brewers will deliver in spades. The great news for visitors to Copenhagen is that Amager Bryghus now has 2 dedicated taprooms in Copenhagen, one near Nørreport station and one in Islands Brygge, so you don't have to take the taxi to the brewery. Danish for 2 beers, that's to øl. They were founded in 2010 by a pair of young brewers who are actually former students of Mikkel Bjergsø. So yes, Mikkel from Mikkeller He literally taught high school physics and beer brewing at his school. That must be exciting. Toel, they followed the same gypsy brewing path initially and quickly earned a reputation for the bold and flavorful beers, some potent and provocative, others fresh and funky, and there were a lot of them. I used to make fun of them because they're called two beers. They should be called 200 beers because one year they released around 160 new beers one year. So Toel is might be just a bit too little. In 2016, they opened Brews. It's a combined brew, pub, bar, and restaurant in Copenhagen's Nørrebro district. Here they showcase the experimental brews from the tanks. Since then, they have bought up an old ketchup factory in Svinninge, some 80 kilometers from Copenhagen. Here they opened their own brewery on the premises. And in the recent years, they have focused their production in Svinninge on the core range, where Brews have been their creative outlet. While Toel in Svinninge is best visited by car, Brews is easily reachable by bus from anywhere in Copenhagen. And if you should choose one of them, I would recommend going to Brews. A notable mention, a very big notable mention, is Nørrebro Bryghus. They were amongst the first microbreweries in Denmark and perhaps the most influential one of all of them, especially if you look at the brewers that have worked there in the years. It opened in 2003 in the Nørrebro neighborhood as one of the first modern brew pubs in Denmark. Flagship beers like Ravnsborg Rød and Bombay IPA, they won medals internationally. The brewery's founder is called Anders Kissmeyer. He was a former brewmaster for Kasper, who left to pursue craft brewing. He was at one point coined the best brewer in the world, and the same was his apprentice later. His name was Sean Hill. He is now of Hill Farmstead in America. And the same history follows with a lot of the brewers from the Nørrebro Bryghus. They have gone and opened up their own successful breweries in Denmark. But in 2023, Nørrebro Bryghus was purchased by a Royal Unibrew, and perhaps not that interesting for the rest of our story. And back to you, Niels.
Yeah, Danske, we have our local branches awarding the best beer spots in the region every other year. Copenhagen gave out 54 awards in 2024, the highest number ever. For visitors, Copenhagen offers an unparalleled concentration of brewpubs, breweries, taprooms, and beer bars, all within easy reach thanks to the city's excellent public transportation and walkability. And here in the next, I'll go through some of the top beer experiences in Copenhagen, each accessible without a car. In fact, we highly recommend using the metro, buses, or simply walking, not just for the convenience, but so you can responsibly enjoy all of those tastings. The transit system is very efficient, and drinking and driving is strictly a no-go. While Denmark is known for its many bike riding citizens, it's not a good idea mixing biking with drinking either. The bikers in Copenhagen are ruthless. So let's look at some beer and food in Copenhagen. As I said, Copenhagen's beer scene is anchored by its breweries, from historic giants like Carlsberg to cutting-edge micros like Åben. However, if you visit Copenhagen, chances are that you'll also have an interest in our budding food scene. So why not combine beer and food? Unlike many other countries, it is not mandatory to serve food at bars, and indeed, only a few do. So we have collected a few must-visit beer-oriented experience where you can sip beer and have your lunch or dinner. Home of Carlsberg is the first one. It's basically Carlsberg's visitor center. Start with the granddaddy of Danish brewing, Carlsberg's original brewery site in Valby. Copenhagen is a sprawling historic complex, famous for landmarks like the Elephant Gate and old red brick brew houses. After a long renovation, the visitor center reopened in late 2023 as a revamped attraction now called Home of Carlsberg. This interactive museum and brewery tour offers a deep dive into Carlsberg's 175-year history and how modern Danish beer brewing was born on this very site. You can see the historic cellars, the world's largest beer bottle collection, and even meet the brewery's dray horses. Of course, there's a tasting bar and a restaurant to enjoy Carlsberg's brews, including specialities from the on-site microbrewery Husbryggeriet Jacobsen, which produces craft-style beers. The restaurant serves open-faced sandwiches and classical Danish dishes for lunch, and more sophisticated servings for dinner. Visiting Carlsberg is like a beer history lesson in 3D, and it's easily reached by train, Carlsberg Station, or a short walk from Enghaveplads Metro. Warpig's Brew Pub is another interesting place. It's downtown in Vesterbro's buzzing meatpacking district, Kødbyen. It was actually the meatpacking districts, but it's now a recreational area, and Warpix is a must visit for both beer and food. It's a unique collaboration between Mikkeller and the American brewery Three Floyds. Warpix brews American Danish style craft beer on site and pairs it with Texas style barbecue in a big hall that feels part beer hall, part smokehouse. They usually have around 20 taps of homebrew beer, ranging from pilsners to wild ales, plus a few guest taps. It's hugely popular, so expect a crowd in the evenings. But lunch is actually very accessible. Getting there is easy. Short walk from Copenhagen Central Station. The whole meat packing area is fun to explore. There are several other bars there, including Fermenton. It's nearby, a cozy bar linked to Dry and Bitter Brewery, or Open, a very modern and stylish bar that also holds a kitchen. At War Peaks, be prepared to share picnic tables with new friends. Don't be surprised if a Danish beer enthusiast strikes up conversation about the double IPA you're drinking. It's that kind of communal vibe in there. Skål is another interesting place to visit. It's in Copenhagen's historic city center at Kultorvet. Skål offers a lively modern beer bar experience. With over 100 craft beers available, typically around 48 taps and 60 plus bottles, it's perfect for enthusiasts and curious newcomers alike. The interior is bright and inviting, furnished with green tiles and large windows, and there's a sunny outdoor terrace right on the square. They rotate taps often and host tap takeovers, and in addition to beer, they serve wine, cocktails, and coffee. They serve open-faced sandwiches and classic pop food like burgers and fries, fish and chips, etc. Expect a relaxed afternoon vibe that transitions into a buzzing crowd by evening. Then there's Brewpub Copenhagen, Denmark's first brewpub, nestled just off Rådhuspladsen at Vestergade 29. Brewpub combines brewing, dining, and atmosphere under one roof. There's 11 on-site taps pouring house-brewed beers straight from the brewery vessels, plus plus guest taps. This venue exemplifies the new Danish beer kitchen concept with chef brewer collaboration driving the menu. The rustic courtyard shines in summer, and inside offers a cozy lighting and relaxing vibe. While the beer cart is perhaps the least interesting of the lot, they beautifully manages to incorporate the beer in the food items, making it a place well worth visiting after all. Then there's Selma, located in the Latin Quarter. Selma is a neighborhood restaurant co-owned by Mikkeller, focusing on seasonal modern smørrebrød, that's open-faced rye sandwiches, paired with craft beer. It rotates 12 taps of artisan ales, often from Mikkeller and guest microbreweries. and has earned a Bib Gourmand Michelin mention for its high quality yet affordable food. Expect a homey, thoughtful, curated atmosphere with both casual lunch options and elevating evening tasting menus. It's a must visit for foodies. And then Bar in Christianshavn's North Atlantic house at Strandgade. Bar, a sibling to the famed Noma, offers hearty Northern Sea inspired cuisine. Think schnitzels, meatballs, waffles, alongside around 20 craft beers on tap. The design showcases blonde oak and Scandinavian minimalism. Its beer list features a wide range of draft and bottled beers, surely the best curated beer list in any Danish restaurant. You can visit for a quick lunch or a full evening with tasting menu and well thought out beer menu. Without a doubt, the best food and beer experience Denmark have to offer. So, Kasper, now that our food hunger is saturated, what can you tell more?
Yeah, let's find a few bars. We will go through them rather quicker than I hoped to because we are running a bit out of time.
And
Um, we have mentioned Bro's tourist home with 30 taps in Nørrebro, very hip atmosphere. Um, Opened, and you can see the people brewing when you're there. And they also serve brunch and lunch and dinners. It's a very great place for especially the younger audience. And we have a tap house in Lavendelstræde. You can see all the taps here. They have 61 taps of beer, and it's like a candy store going in. They have this big digital display where you can see all the beers, and they change often rapidly. So you can see like a local lager next to a barrel-aged Italian stout or a Swedish sour ale. The atmosphere is lively but laid back. They also host competitions for home brewers. They really try to engage in that community as well. And this is less than 100 meters from the pedestrian street Strøget and the city hall in Copenhagen. It's very easy accessible. We talked about Fermentoren earlier, very close to the meat packaging district. You can see in the picture that's the beautiful gentleman in the right corner. That's me and my friends. We are very happy to hang out here. It's like this hidden gem. They have 2 dozen or so taps, perhaps not as much as some of the other bars, but it's intimate and the beer is amazing. And this one is one of my other favorites. There's not a lot of pictures because it's very intimate, and it's like going into a friend's basement rather than a bar, actually. It's also in the Latin Quarter, and it's snug and warm and entirely focused on beer and conversation. They have a very high level of quality here, like rare barrel-aged stouts mixed with some of the finest Czech lager from the Cyprus. This is for me the craft beer hygge of Copenhagen. And some special mentions if you're interested in cask ales, you cannot miss out on Charlie's Bar. I believe they are, if not as old as Danske, they are almost there. They're an institution on the Copenhagen beer scene. They were the first Danish beer bar to be awarded with this cask mark creation that they give to bars that serve the real ale correctly. It's not fancy, but it's well kept and very cozy. And if you're a fan of real ale, you should visit there. And back to the meat packaging district, Open. They have 7, soon to be 6 bars in Denmark. This one is part of the brewery and in the heart of Kødbyen. It feels equals part modern taproom and creative hub. I mean, the design is sleek and airy with these long communal tables, wall of taps and laid back energy, and it has this heavy industrial vibe. And the brewery originally founded in a farmhouse in Kolding. This is quite a transformation, but they bring this diverse mix of beers from crisp lagers to IPAs and experimenting sours. They cater to both the craft enthusiast, but also the young and hip. And on weekend, it's really buzzing, but it's always welcoming. It's for me, it's the showcase of what this new wave of Danish brewing is all about. And that was rather quick, but back to you, Niels.
Yeah, I'll just quickly mention that we love festivals. We love our beer festivals, and actually we have quite a lot of them all around the country nowadays. We mentioned earlier our Copenhagen Beer Festival, which is still the largest beer festival, or one of the largest beer festivals. And we are still going. It's normally in May, and next year it will be the last weekend in May. So it's well worth a visit. It's fairly close to the main train station, or it's one stop with the S train away, and then you have 15-minute walk, and then you're there. So it's a good festival, and it's still very much alive. We also have the Mikkeller Beer Celebration, which is it's it's more international, and it's more, let's say, it's a big of a rock star aura. There's sessions, etc. So plan it early if you want to have it. It's held uh, fairly close to. It's something called Øksenhallen, which is close to the meat packing area. So, and also in normally in May. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Ølets Day, the day of the beer. This is a must visit if you're in Denmark the first weekend of September. And then we will conclude with some practical tips, and I will hand it over to you, Kasper, to give around those practical tips around Denmark and our language and etiquette.
Excellent. Then I think we're back on track now. So we also have time for some questions. I can see there are some, so that's great. Um, Getting around Copenhagen and Denmark, for that matter, is quite easy actually. We have excellent public transportation. In Copenhagen, you can use the metro, the S trains, the buses, or the harbor ferries. They are clean, they're safe, and they're frequent. You can buy a city pass, or you can use your mobile phone. There's an app called Dots, or there's another app called Reisekort. Not very friendly for English speaking, but it's possible, and they can assure that you have a hassle-free travel. Many beer spots discussed here in these presentations are very near central stations, or at least bus stops. You don't have to walk a lot if you don't want to, but Copenhagen is a good place to walk or bike if you want that. And as we said, don't mix drink and driving, and don't drink and bike either. The police are strict, and the penalties are steep. The language, the etiquette. Most of us speak excellent English, especially in the cities, so the language barriers are minimal. Menus and signs are often bilingual. Uh, Regarding the etiquette, you don't have to tip the bartenders or the waiters. The service is included in the price, and it's really not expected. But many of the tourist-heavy destinations are beginning to add an opt-out for tipping when paying by card, and by all means, decline if you wish to. You are not expected to pay. We typically pay as we order in the bar. You can run a tab, but it's less common. You often leave a credit card, for instance. And speaking of payment, you can use your credit or debit card. They are widely accepted everywhere, even for small amounts. And there's also a wide host of mobile pay apps you can use. So you don't need to carry on cash or exchange if you don't want to. The bar culture in Denmark are most often very casual seat-yourself environments. It's normal to return empty glasses to the bar or a tray station, especially in the brewpubs as a courtesy. If you do smoke, it's most often banned indoors, but there are some few older places where you can find smoking rooms. But that is the exception, and it's generally a no-go to smoke indoors. Also, we can often seem a bit reserved at first. It's not because we are unfriendly, that's just how Danes are. If you want to strike up a conversation about beer drinking, we usually warm up rather quickly. You might also find that some of us are very nerdy and like to discuss the technical part of it, but that's just because there are so many proud beer nerds in Denmark. You are also allowed to drink on the street and public spaces like in parks. So on a sunny day, you can see people walking, enjoying a beer, or sitting at the waterfront or in some of the parks. It's a very relaxed culture about alcohol, and it's focused on enjoyment and not excess. Well, perhaps for the younger generation, maybe also an excess, but we don't talk about that today. The cost of beers, the sizes of beers, be prepared. Denmark is pricey. It's one of the most expensive places to live. A craft beer might cost you somewhere between 50 and 90 Danish crowns. That's 7 to 12 euros. And that's a large average priced craft beer we're talking about. And a large craft beer is 40 centiliters these days, whereas smaller is 20 to 25 centiliters. Some of us opt for the smaller ones when we are trying a strong or more special beer. Tax on alcohol in Denmark is generally high, which is partly why the prices are steep. But do remember that you're not obligated or expected to tip the bartenders, and the quality of the beer is generally top notch. So you get some value for it. And water also is safe to drink from tap everywhere. Some bars have free water jugs if you like, others you might need to ask. If you want to go beyond Copenhagen, and I really recommend that you do, because there's great beers all around the country. You can go to like Aarhus in Jutland, say in the middle of the big left part of Denmark. You can find a very vibrant brew scene. On the Isle of Fyn, that's the isle in the middle of the country. You have breweries like Ørbæk and Revsvindinge with long histories, and small towns with local microbreweries. You could venture to Aalborg in the north of the country, or to Bornholm in the eastern part. That's a small island in the very right of the picture. They all have some sort of craft beer, and I mean the beer revolution have especially reached all those areas as well, and most of them are very charming. A lot of these places here can be reached by train in just hours, but Bornholm takes some preparation. You might need a plane or a ferry to get that, take that into consideration. And with that, I would like to thank you all for listening to us, and we should go to the questions.
Yeah.
I see one here from.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kasper. Thank you, Niels. We actually already have two first question asked by Jan on our text chat. Jan, if you would like to ask these questions using your microphone, or maybe to add something, please feel free to do so. I can also read. No, you can see those questions actually, because they are on the public part of the chat.
I can take the first one, and Kasper, you can take the second one.
So, as you wish.
Yeah, no, that 90 shift beer wine, it actually it started earlier. I remember from when I was a teenager back in the late 70s, early 80s, that at that point in time, wine really had a revolution in Denmark. Wine suddenly came in abundance. It became a lot cheaper than wine had been before. A lot of people actually did their own wine. Home brewing of wine was, or not brewing, but home fermentation of making our own wine was actually quite popular in certain groups of the country and areas of the country. So you had this growing market of wine, and there was a also partly due to the lobbyism from a certain group of farmers in a very large European country. There was this sense that wine was something, it was better or more classy to drink wine than beer. And that kind of spills a little bit into the next question. I think Kasper might have a few more comments to that, but that actually also had that effect that some of these earlier breweries basically closed down or was procured by other breweries. Carlsberg and Royal Unibrew, who are the really large duopole, as Kasper mentioned, in Denmark, they basically bought whatever was there. So what was left around the shortly before the millennium, these 13 breweries, was those two conglomerates and 11 that was still living, still believing they could do it. Thisted, which is actually seen as one of the big breweries in Denmark today, was also active back then. So you have a few of these that weren't procured by the big ones, but that was the scene. So you had a combination of beer losing market share, leading to closing of breweries, and wine becoming cheaper. So yeah.
Yeah, that's actually great, Niels, because I think the two questions are really mixed together very, very tightly. Just to add to this, and it's a bit more technical, but being a duopole with the big breweries, they put on some restrictions onto the supermarkets as well. So it was mostly their products and only theirs available for sale, meaning that the beer selection was very small, where the wine markets in the supermarkets were getting bigger and bigger. So obviously it was more interesting when you were going out. You had just bought your big steak, and you could find your wine on the shelf, or you could find a pilsner. And that was a very big part of what the Danske is also about, because we could all travel to England to get real ale, or we could travel to especially Belgium, where we could find these big, sweet, Bastard beers compared to the Danish ones. But we just couldn't get them in the supermarket where we all shopped back then. And of those, with the question two, many of those 13 that was left back then is still here, still going strong. Luckily, we have had many more, but it's they don't export. It's most often the new and young ones that they export. I mean, some of them are also available in northern part of Germany for for the Grænsehandel, just about the border. Then you can buy the beer cheaper, and that's a whole another discussion. But I hope especially Niels answered these questions, and then Michael asks if we can put the brewers and bar recommendations into writing for reference. I don't know, Magdalena, is that something you can help push out to the audience?
I guess we can put that somewhere on the EBCU page, right, Magdalena?
Excellent.
Yes, plus the webinar will be
Yeah.
recorded and streamed to uploaded to YouTube. So Michael, you will be always able to come back to a certain moment of the webinar and retrieve the list of recommendations.
Yeah, appreciated that. But I was just wondering if there was a quick way of putting it in the chat or something for reference. It'd just be fantastic to be able to refer to it if I was to visit Copenhagen. I visited once, but not got around to all those places.
But Michael, you're always welcome to go into ale.dk, find the national chairman mail and send me a mail. I will definitely share whatever it is if you're near Denmark. So
I just posted my mail in the chat, so you can also just write and you can have the slides or the manuscript.
Great. Yeah, I've been to War Pigs, and I came over to home of Carlsberg, but my daughter got ill and I had to spend the rest of the time looking after her in a hotel room, so that was a bit of a shame. But yeah, I enjoyed what I saw.
I hope you come back then.
Yes, I intend to, definitely.
Good. Anna asked if she had to decide between going to the Øl Festival or the beer day, which one we would recommend. As Hans Peter has asked, if you're going to Copenhagen, it's definitely the beer festival. The beer day is largest in the rest of Denmark, actually, and that is where you'll find the most special celebrations of the day. So if you're choosing between going in May or in September, I would also go in May because of the weather. It's most often good in that period.
Yeah, and as Kasper said, the beer festival is definitely Copenhagen. But if you're going outside Copenhagen and looking for someone, there are a lot of small beer festivals all around the country, mostly all of the year. But I would definitely recommend, if you're not in Copenhagen, then it's the day of the beer, because as Kasper says, if you find the medium-sized cities outside Copenhagen or the big cities outside Copenhagen, that's where you find the celebration of the beer day. It's actually not that much in Copenhagen.
But it's also worth noting that a lot of cities outside Copenhagen now have their own festivals of sorts all throughout the year. So if you're going a special place, just hit up Google and maybe you'll find something relevant for you there.
Yeah.
Another question about the beer festival. You said it's almost 1,000 beers. Are most of them from Denmark, or are a lot of them coming from other countries?
Most of them are from Denmark, and sometimes we do have some foreign breweries, and we have a lot of importers also showing up, showcasing beers from all around the world. But it's primarily Danish beers you're going for.
And a few breweries from southern parts of Sweden, actually, also.
Yeah.
The last few years.
If you're going for an international event, you should go for Mikkelos, the MDCC. That's very international with a showcase of some of the best Danish beers also.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions, or I don't know, something maybe you would like to reflect on? Our webinars are usually scheduled for 1 hour. We are not very time restrained. If the mood is great and if there's a huge need for discussion, we can stay a bit longer. But let's say the last chance, the last round of questions or reflections or whatever you would like to share with us.
No, we'd just like to thank you for the possibility of showcasing Copenhagen. Perhaps we can come back again and talking about beers from the rest of the country someday.
Yeah, we'd love to. There was a question from Bo, the date for the next webinar again, the one with Frank Boone. It's
October 27th. October 27th.
Yeah, October 27th. There will be a lot of announcement on our social media channels. On the chat, you can also see all the links. So follow us to stay updated, not to miss anything. All right. If there are no further questions, I would like to once again thank Kasper and Niels. Thank you very much for sharing a really nice presentation of a very vibrant Danish beer scene. I think we all feel motivated and encouraged. I guess that many of us have been to Denmark already, but not necessarily to discover the beer scene. So for me personally, it will be a motivation for yet another visit, not only to Copenhagen, but also other cities that you mentioned that are famous for its local beer scenes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you also for being with us. Thank you for your questions, for your contribution, and see you next time. See you in October. Enjoy your evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.